Hello BookTube, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and today I would like to give you the week 2 update for the middle grade May Reads Readathon hosted by ACOS, and also my own challenge to read a book a day in the month of May. Well, today while I'm filming this, it is late in the afternoon on May 13th, and I am about halfway done with my 13th book, so I'm on track for a book a day in May, and that doesn't include one adult book that I started in April that I am continuing to chink away at, and that is The Land of Painted Caves by Jean M. Auel. This is the last book in the Earth Children series. It is a gigantic chunker. I have about 200 pages left, or about 10 or 11 chapters. I am almost done with chapter 30, and there's 41 chapters. So I am doing really well on that. I had hoped to have it done by now, but I have given some audiobook time to a couple of middle grade books. I finished Finally by Wendy Mass. This is the second book in the Willow Falls series, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to 11 Birthdays by Wendy Mass during the first week of the month, and this week I finished this one, and it was really cute. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the first one. There was a little less magic in this one, but it was still really fun. And I told my daughter Katie she really ought to go back and read this one. I know she's already 13 now, and she thinks this is probably too young for her, but she did enjoy 11 Birthdays back when she was 11, and this one has a lot of angst involved in getting your first phone and all the drama that surrounds that, and just a lot of other firsts that our main character Rory experiences in this book. And it was just really a fun book to listen to. And while we're on the subject of audiobooks, I've been listening to The Pinderwicks at Point Muette by Jean Birdsall. This is the third book in the Pinderwick series. I read the first two last year, I believe, and I've been really excited to get to this. The Pinderwick family is just precious. This book really reads like a classic. The problems that the Pinderwicks have are just problems that a child ought to have. You know, you would hope that your child would have these kind of problems as opposed to the actual problems of our kids today, like drugs and other things that are more prevalent in today's world. This, I believe, is written as a modern book. It's just that it's so wholesome and wonderful that you just wish that the world were this idyllic. In fact, Kaylee from Books for MKs did a wonderful review of this book. It's very in-depth, and it really explains more of what I'm trying to get across and what I'm trying to say about the book. She really described it very well. So if I remember, I will put a link down below to her Goodreads review of this book. Now, I was able to get this on audio CD from the library, so I've been listening to this in the car. And unfortunately, my library does not have The Pinderwicks in Spring on audio. I went ahead and ordered it just to take a look at it, but it is a little longer even than Point Muette. It's about 320 pages. And because I can't get it on audio, I probably won't tackle it this month, because I'm trying to read shorter books so that I can accomplish my book a day in May, and I have enough short books on my TBR that I really don't need to read this to accomplish my goals. I'm probably going to put this on hold, but I don't know. I'm going to hang on to it for a couple of days, and after I finish Point Muette, I might just be dying to go right on in to the next Pinderwicks book. Although, as of right now, this is the last one, so it might be good to hang on and not rush into it, because they're so good. And I don't think this is going to be the last one, but until another one comes out, I might want to just hang on to this and savor it a little bit longer. Let me get back now to the books that I finished. When I did my last update video, I actually filmed it on Saturday, but I didn't get the video posted until, I think, Tuesday. So I was only able to tell you about the first 5 books that I finished for middle grade May and for a book a day in May. So the 6th book that I finished is Only the Names Remain, The Cherokees and the Trail of Tears by Alex W. Beeler. This is just a little tiny history book about the Cherokee tribe, and I thought it was going to be more about the Trail of Tears, but it was really more about the events leading up to the Trail of Tears. It was a very good history of the Cherokee Indian tribe, but it only had one chapter devoted to the Trail of Tears itself. So I was a little disappointed about that, because I wanted to know a little bit more about the Trail of Tears, but I'm happy about what I learned regarding the Cherokees prior to that, and a little bit more about what was happening in the U.S. government and how that meshed with what was happening with the Cherokees. Alright, then I managed to get one of the Origami Yoda books read that I want to read this month. I read The Surprise Attack of Jabba the Puppet. This is by Tom Engelberger, and I have to say I think I enjoyed this one more than all the rest. This one was really good. The kids band together and had an origami rebel alliance, and every one of them had an origami puppet that was a different Star Wars character, or it was a parody of a different Star Wars character. The creative names for the characters in this book were just phenomenal. I wonder if Tom Engelberger thought them all up himself, or if he had some people helping him, because they were so creative and so fun. I just really got a kick out of all of the names and the characters in this book. There were a lot of kids involved. What was happening in this story was that the kids at McCrory Middle School had a little bit lower test scores the previous year, and the principal announced that they were going to have this special program to help boost their test scores, and they were going to be taking away all of the electives. Well, the program that they had to do was really just hideous, and they wanted their electives back. So they formed this Origami Rebel Alliance, and they got as many kids in the school as they could to stage a revolt. And I won't tell you what they did to plead their case, but it was just a really good creative book. It was a creative idea, and I really would recommend this series, especially for emerging readers, because they're really not difficult to read. They have a lot of graphics and drawings and fun aspects, and they're just written in such an entertaining way that I think these would be a lot of fun for a middle schooler or an older elementary school student to read. Now, the next one I picked up was a little more intense. It was very short, and if I had any complaint, I would probably say that I wish it could have been longer. However, because I'm reading a book a day in May, I'm really kind of glad it was short. But any other time, I would have probably said, you know, I wish there could have been a little bit more. But this is a book about a boy from Alabama, I believe, on the Gulf Coast, and a hurricane is coming. So this is a survival story about him and a couple of neighbors and their survival story during the hurricane. It's a lot of it takes place in the swamp, and it's just really intense. Now, I live in Florida. I don't live in a swamp, but I certainly have done a lot of hiking through swampy areas, and I can imagine being caught in a swamp at night during a storm with floodwater rising. And yeah, that's the story of this book. So it's called Terror at Bottle Creek by Watt Key, and Watt Key wrote that he based this on some actual occurrences and an actual hurricane, and I thought it was really good. This is one of our Florida Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists for next school year, 2017-2018, and I think that the kids are really going to enjoy this one. And then I finally got around to this little gem. This is adorable. It's delightful. I can see why this won a Newbery Award. It's by Kate DiCamillo. It's Flora and Ulysses, and it's wonderful. This has to be the most creative, unique book I have ever read. I don't even want to tell you anything about it, because you really just need to read it for yourself. It's a combination of text and a little bit of comic book style graphics and artwork, and it is just delightful. So even though I'm not a poetry person, I did pick up two books that are written in verse, mainly because I really needed to catch up. I got a little bit behind. In fact, I've really gone through the first half of the month now about a book behind. So I wanted to read a couple of books that were on my TBR that were just super short so that I could catch up a little bit. So last night I read Love That Dog by Sharon Creech. This book is something I've read before. It is really adorable. It's about a boy who's in school, and his teacher's trying to teach him about poetry, and it's basically his poetry. And most of it is very non-traditional, but it's really cute. And he does bring in some poetry about his dog, so hence the title, Love That Dog. And it is just a really sweet book, and it really is a lot of fun. Now, then this morning I read Hate That Cat by Sharon Creech, which is book 2. It's the same student, Jack, a year later, and he has the same teacher. He mentions that his teacher has now moved up a grade, and so he has the same teacher. And so this year she's teaching him a little bit more about poetry, about some of the features of poetry, alliteration and onomatopoeia and things like that. So he is using those things in his poetry. I didn't rate this one quite as high. I didn't find it quite as enjoyable as Love That Dog, although it was still a cute book. It was just not as enjoyable as the other one, and I was hoping that it would have a little bit more cat stuff. Now, it actually had as much about cats in this book as this one had about dogs. This one was not completely all about his dog. But since I'm a cat lover, I would have loved to have read a lot more about cats. But it was still really cute, and I liked how it was structured, and I liked his story about the cat he hated, and then you just have to go from there and see what kind of brings him around to maybe not hating cats quite so much by the end of the book. So that was really cute. But again, I didn't think this one was quite as good as Love That Dog. And so far, these are the only two in the Jack series. I don't know if there's going to be any more or not, but I did find them, as a whole, very enjoyable and fun to read. Now, Sharon Creech is one of my favorite authors of middle grade books. I think I've read at least 10 of her books. I got on the Sharon Creech kick back when my kids were young and I discovered audiobooks. I discovered that the library had a lot of audiobooks that were middle grade and children's, and I went through a lot of her books. She's got a Newbery winner and some others that are just really, really good. If you haven't read anything by her and you enjoy middle grade books, then I recommend that you try Sharon Creech. So those are my 12 and a half middle grade books that I have read and finished so far this month. On Goodreads, I have at the top of my TBR about 14 more middle grade books, and I'm not really going in the order that they are listed there. I've just been kind of picking them up as the mood strikes me. But here are a couple that I think I'm going to read in the very near future. The Ugly Truth by Jeff Kinney. It's the 5th book in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. I'm probably going to go ahead and start and hopefully finish this one tonight. And then I can't wait to read Princess Label Maker to the Rescue, which is the 5th book in the Origami Yodi series. This is the last one of these that I own, and I'm hoping I can get the next one of these very soon because I've really, really been enjoying this series. And then I've got the whole Dark is Rising sequence, all 5 books that I want to get busy on this month. I may not get them all read this month, but I at least want to get a good start on them. I've already read the first one last year, and so I'm probably going to review the last chapter of that one and then move right on into book 2, which is called The Dark is Rising, and these are by Susan Cooper. I'm eventually wanting to get to The Great King, which is the Newbery winner, because the first time I tried to read it, I didn't understand it. So it will make more sense for me to read the whole series, and then I will get more enjoyment out of The Great King, I'm sure. So that's my week 2 update for middle grade May reads and Book a Day in May. What are you reading for May? Are you reading some middle grade books? If you are, I'd love to hear about them. And be sure to join Acosta's Goodreads group and tell us what middle grade books that you're reading this month. I will leave a link down below. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.